he is so present. So when we are together, like rarely are our phones out. He listens, like I said, 100% of the focus is on me and anyone else that he is with at the time. So if he's with his kids, he's 100% focused on them. At work, he's focused on the managers that work for him and his clients. And you can really feel that presence when you're with him. And it's such a gift. And it's teaching me how to be more present in my life. Welcome to Tune In, Discovering Your Authentic Self. Today marks 2 years that I met Joe, and I wanted to share a little bit more of the adventure, a little bit more of the healing and the work that I have done and he has done to get to this point, because it hasn't always been an easy road. Actually, it's been a challenge for both of us. And I know he and I got on here and did a series of podcasts where we shared some of the hard as well as how we got to the other side of it. And I just wanted to add a little bit more detail to that. So it was Easter Sunday, 2023, which was April 9th. And I always go on this hike in the morning, and I did that sunrise hike and then went to church with the kids. And then the kids all went to their dads. And that was the first time that, that they were away. And I had a lot of time that day to kind of just be with myself and be introspective. And I had had this like intuitive hit to get back onto Bumble. I had been on, I don't know, maybe like 6 weeks or so. And I had been going on a couple dates with two different guys, and I had just knew that it really wasn't going anywhere. And I actually got on there without the intention of having a serious relationship. I really just wanted to have fun and just wanted to experience life. And like I shared on that last podcast. And so it had been over a year since the separation, and filing for divorce was about 7 months before that. And I had just moved out into my own home like 3 weeks before this Easter. And my kids weren't ready for me to be in a serious relationship. And quite frankly, I probably wasn't ready to be in a serious relationship. Um, for them, it had only been a year that they knew that things were not working out with their dad. But really, for me, I had been checked out 5 or 6 years before that. And without getting into too many details, there were many reasons why I had felt that way. But I had never kind of let myself get to the point of recognizing that the relationship wasn't going to work. Um, so rewind to that day, he and I started texting, and we started having conversations on the phone every night for an hour or two. And we spent a lot of time really getting to know each other and talking. And I knew, like, I could tell, like, he had such great qualities. He was an amazing listener, very curious, asking a lot of questions. And in that first phase, with like that honeymoon period, there were lots of emotions, quite frankly, probably some trauma bonding, porous boundaries. And we kind of just both dove in head first. And, as the normal honeymoon period ends, like 5 to 6 months, the reality starts to set in. And so I was starting to become like hypersensitive to the changes. And that's something with anxious attachment that you notice that, like, when things start to shift, you feel like, okay, is this indicative of something that's going to go wrong? And like that fear of abandonment really kicks in, where with him, he had more of a fear of rejection. So like when I would bring up things that I noticed, he would think like, oh gosh, like, I'm not good enough, and I'm not able to do this for her. And we really just didn't know how to communicate. And we didn't have those skills in our previous marriages, either one of us. No fault of our partner necessarily either, but we didn't either. And so we didn't know how to communicate. So what we ended up doing is we took like a 1 week break in that September. So it was about 5 months after we met. And we just kind of, it was like a natural break. Things kind of hit the top, and we just didn't know how to repair it, essentially. And so, but we both knew that we really cared about each other and we wanted to remain in each other's lives. So we continued on, but we never really discussed the real reason as to what happened. And we were, starting in that power struggle stage, and we um, didn't really talk about it. And so, nor did we have enough time to really do the work. So, but we knew we wanted to be in each other's lives. So we started what I call like phase two of the relationship, which was September of 2023. And in that period, so it went from there to like May 2024, he had a job change. And with that job change, it was a choice. He was not content in his previous job that he had been at for 10 years and wanted something different. And he knew the job description was 50% travel, but essentially ended up being much more than that. And so for me, that was a trigger for me. It was a trigger for me that he took the job. It was a trigger for me that he traveled so much, and from my past about not being prioritized. And as it got closer to May, so March, April, May, he pretty much was traveling every week, Monday through Friday. And he would be home on Fridays, but then he would have baseball. He coaches a special needs baseball team and league. And so he would have that Friday nights and Saturday mornings. And so, the amount of time that we had together was very, very small. And it would basically be Sunday mornings and a little bit of Saturday. And, my kids were still not really into me dating. And so it was really challenging. And I didn't want to share for the fear that would be another thing added to his plate, that I was frustrated with him traveling so much. And so the resentment built up for me. And I ended up bringing up to him. But at that point, like, it was a month or 6 weeks of building up resentment. And so when I brought it up to him, um, I wasn't very regulated. And I was explaining to him, like I've talked about on the last podcast about it, that I was feeling disconnected. And he basically, didn't really, he changed the subject. And then once we talked about it, he's like, kind of like, you're right. I probably can't meet your needs for closeness and spending so much time together. And because he agreed on that, I was like, well, then what's the point? And so I wasn't super regulated, pushed him away. And he, quite frankly, didn't argue about it. He was just like, okay. And I didn't really know where to go at that point. So neither one of us did. So we ended up taking a long break. We took a break from mid-May to Father's Day. And then in Father's Day is when I accidentally butt dialed him from work. And we ended up talking a little bit that time. And then his mom fell and got hurt. And that opened the door for more conversation. He knew that she was somebody that I continued to connect with and write letters to. And so that opened the door to starting talking a little bit more. And then in July, um, we ended up going out to dinner and more consistently started talking, but really slowly. So during that phase that we were not talking to each other and in not contacting each other, I ended up really diving in and working on myself. I was self-sourcing my happiness. I did a coaching program. I did therapy. I was reading books, listening to podcasts, spent time with the kids, a lot of rest, spending time with the new puppy, and just kind of looking to myself for everything. And that really, really changed. So, and during that time for him, he realized that the relationship brought him happiness, is this is what he had told me, at least, and that he deserved to have that. And just because it couldn't be as much time as maybe he wanted to devote to it, that we could figure out a way. So we ended up going out to dinner in July, like I said, and then started talking a little bit more. He invited me to a concert, and then we just kind of found ourselves building this new foundation, this phase three of our relationship, a lot more honesty and just realness. And so we kind of working on the power struggle stage where things would come up and we would talk about them. And I'm realizing that, just because it's something I want, it doesn't mean that it necessarily has to be that way. And we needed to learn to compromise. And he can't read my mind, so he doesn't really know what what it is that I need and want, because it's very different than him. But I'm welcome to bring it up, and we can talk about it and compromise and see how we can meet each other. So fast forward to now. Last night we went out for a walk, and which is something we do often. We walk and talk and connect, which is amazing. And I recognize we are not the same people that we were 2 years ago when we met. I used to be really afraid of bringing up hard topics in the past. In previous relationships, things were not really, and I'm sure part of it was me not bringing it up in a kind, soft way, but things were not met with the same amount of patience and understanding. And so I used to be afraid of bringing up these hard topics, especially with him, like in the beginning, like where do you see our future? Like, what about living together sometime? What about my needs that need to be met? So now I've really learned to regulate myself first. And I ask myself, can I get this need met? Can I meet this need myself? Can I get it met with friends or hobbies or meditation? And then if not, it's something that I want or need from him, then I can go to him calm and centered and ask him, hey, this is really important to me. And then realize it's not his responsibility to meet all of my needs. And I think that really took a lot of pressure off of him as well as me. And something I also realized recently is that I think I set my expectations so high, and that's a means of self-protection, is to not let someone in to be so close. So if he can't meet them, then I can't get hurt. So it's essentially like, self-sabotage type of thing. And I'm no longer afraid of asking those hard questions, talking about the difficult topics. I would rather live in the truth and have like an authentic relationship than to be like fooling myself. And like, even if the answer is no, or the answer is I can't do that, then at least I know. And then I can make the decision if this is something that I want to continue to source to him, or if it's something I do myself, or if it's not going to work for us in the future. So I wanted to share some characteristics of him that are amazing, that have really, really helped soften me, and things that are not necessarily my strengths, but are his. And I've able to really grow from those. So kindness. This is something about him, that he's super kind. He cares so much about others. Um, he asks every day about me, my family. He remembers details of my life, friends' names, things about my kids, passions, interests, and just really is interested in me and what makes me tick. He is super patient. He listens intently. He doesn't react. There's not a lot of anger that ever comes from him. If there is, like, it's very, very mild, and he just deals with it on his own. Very calm tone, and he's just an amazing, really amazing dad. He is so present. So when we are together, like, rarely are our phones out. He listens. Like I said, 100% of the focus is on me and anyone else that he is with at the time. So if he's with his kids, he's 100% focused on them. At work, he's focused on the managers that work for him and his clients. And you can really feel that presence when you're with him, and it's such a gift, and it's teaching me how to be more present in my life. He is really compassionate, cares about other people. He runs a special needs baseball league and coaches teams, very non-judgmental. He sees the good in everyone, and it's just an amazing thing. He's really open to feedback, and he will listen when I bring something up to him. He'll often get quiet and kind of process it. He will take responsibility, apologize for it, and then we'll agree to work on those things if it's something that um, needs to be worked on, which is amazing. And then last but certainly not least, very hardworking, both in his job, his house, his activities, and just gives 100% effort in all of his all that he does. So, like I said, these strengths have really helped me become more like that, because these are not things that come naturally to me. And here we are, healing together, very evolved relationship. This is something that I've always wanted. And for me, like I said, I'm learning to self-source more. He's learning to lean in more. And I think at one point in my life, or many years of my life, I believed that a partner or a relationship would be something that would complete me. And now I see that I am the only one that can do that for myself. And everything else is just gravy. It just he complements that with me. So we're growing individually, we're growing together, and there are certain things that I bring to him that are not things that he necessarily needs, but they are things that I need. And he's willing to listen to them and try to meet me. So, like, for example, physical touch, like holding hands, that's very important to me. Words of affection, the depth of communication. So, I used to get frustrated with those things because I would think, like, well, because they're important to me, I wasn't, kind of a selfish thinking. I wasn't recognizing that just because they're not important to him doesn't mean that it he cares about me any less. And that was a huge awakening and aha moment for me, is to, like, I need to tell him that these things are important to me, and he can choose to meet them or not, but just because he's not doing them doesn't mean that he cares any less. And that was really helpful to realize that. So there's a lot of uncertainty in our future, our kids, where they're going to be, aging parents, just everything. And it can be really scary to not know where it's going to be. But honestly, are we ever sure of anything? I think once I came to terms with that, it really helped me detach a lot. And I just know that no matter what, we will be in each other's lives. And I feel very blessed to have a partner to do life with. And he is a rock. He's a stable, safe space for me. When things get tough, I know I can go to him. I know that he understands me and he allows that safe space for me to process. And I doesn't really try to solve things for me, which is amazing. And I'm able to figure out everything with that love and support. And I just feel really blessed to do life. Happy 2 years, babe.